Riot just went and turned the game upside down, sweeping nerfs and util changes across the board, and that means secret buffs for some agents that you probably don't realize too. And not only that, we've got Split and Pearl returning to the map pool, changes to Abyss and Pearl. How are you meant to know what's even good anymore? Well, you see, that's where I come in. Hi, I'm Stackmandu. I'm a former professional coach and full-time Valorant nerd who over the last 5 years has built a system for analyzing the game at a fundamental level, and I'm using that knowledge to tell you what's good and what's trash in 11.08. Because boy, oh boy, do you want to be ahead of the meta on this one. This is a huge change to Abyss. The B-site changes are designed to limit post-plant off-site play and also help defenders defend on-site. Not only did they change the site structure, they changed the plantable area as well. So no more planting on cliff and spamming from danger, guys. Unlucky. There's now a little alcove on the cliff side of Gen that defenders can use to play in. And I'll tell you right now, I do not want to walk into a KO right flick out of this alcove. The alcove under Hell, which helps let defenders hide from high up util, but is mainly there for attackers in the post plant to have somewhere else to play. And a huge rework to the other side of the site, introducing this box for defenders to play in and the removal of bookshelf. That is now a double stack box. And the last structural change is related to the boxes next to Gen, which have gone from providing jump up on the front side of site now to the back side of site. So what do all these changes mean? Well, let's start with the Duelists. Starting with ISO, and the nerf to his ultimate is impactful on some maps, but not on Abyss. All of the key areas that you want to spot do fall within 36 meters, including back of A site and back of B. And with the new changes to B, his wall becomes incredibly good for scaling up. Not only can you scale up ramp with it like you used to, you can also use it to scale up danger, whilst also using undercut to suppress and vulnerable anyone trying to play in that alcove Gen area. Then once you're up there, you can tuck into the alcove for cover. You can also use undercut to suppress anyone on that new box. And let me know, guys, what is the call out for this new box going to be? And it better not be just new box, because what if there's a new box and this box is just the old new box, and it's a rabbit hole that I don't want to get into. The changes to the Gen jump up helps further cement Waylay and Jet at the top of the meta on Abyss. And Waylay can make this sick new play with the changes to mid and B link. Players aren't going to be used to this straight away, so you should be able to farm some rounds. Now let's move over to Initiators. I'm giving a big boon to KO on Abyss. Getting a buff to both versions of his flash and having a ton more places to play with that on site is going to be really great for him. Whenever I'm recommending KO, it always comes with the caveat of knowing what you're doing and practicing lineups to get the most out of him, because he is very difficult and he does require coordination. I am going to keep Sova in S tier for now, just because the map is so big. Sova gets a lot of advantages, but I'll be honest, I'm not exactly sure how the meta is going to play out on Abyss. If teams are trying to squeeze in double Duelist and both Reyna and Yoru suck, then you're more likely to need flashes for this map, and that's where Sova might get squeezed out a little bit. Now we're on to controllers. Big nerfs to Omen this patch pull his smokes in line with Clove's smokes. If you want to play aggressively, Clove is just better at that. If you want to play a more traditional controller style, Astra just simply outclasses him on this map. And despite Astra also receiving some nerfs, her global presence on Abyss is still very strong. But one thing to also consider is Harbor. With longer cooldowns across the board for both initiators and controllers, Harbor can play an initiator-controller hybrid to help fill both of those gaps. And the Harbor rework is coming in 2 patches, so this might be the last chance that you have to play him in his current state. And let's move on to Sentinels. There's going to be a very clear best Sentinel on Abyss for this patch. Vice is being knocked down a peg to A tier. She has been absolutely gutted this patch. Razor Vines are weaker. It's easier to trigger Shear. You can shoot out Arcros before it flashes and it doesn't give out info anymore. And her ult size got nerfed as well. Literally every part of her kit got nerfed and she's still kind of fine. I've been harping on about playing Vice over the last couple of tier lists. She's never been a super popular choice, and that's across all maps. But for those of you who have been paying attention to the tier lists and have been abusing her, I hope you got the rank you wanted this act. And if you didn't, then you should check out the Skillcapped website, where you can start with our beginner's fundamental course and work up to more advanced things like learning how to aim like a god, or agent courses like our new Veto course, which will be releasing very soon.
We guarantee that you'll rank up at least 5 ranks while actively using our program. If you don't, you get your money back.
With so much changing in Valorant right now, you've worked hard enough to deserve an extra edge with ultimate agent and map courses from a pro coach like me. So subscribe today and make sure you get the rank that you've always wanted. So as you can see, this could be a pretty huge meta shift. For you guys in low elo, I want you to keep it simple for this patch. Stick with agents with straightforward util. Jet and ISO for duelists. For initiators, Sky and Gecko are going to give you a natural util advantage. Controllers, Omen and Clove, and Sentinels, Cypher and Vice. And if you're playing in a 5-stack or Premier, or just trying to figure out which agent to fill, here's 3 comp ideas that you can try. And let me know, would you prefer to have duo recommendations here, or do you like the full comps? It's something that we might explore for the next tier list. Let's head over to Pearl, where it might look a little bit different to what you're used to. A massive change has arrived to Pearl's B site, and I'm a big fan of it. No longer will you be able to simply spam from B long. I mean, it is still possible, but now you have more options to play on site, and that's just a way more fun way to play the game, let's be honest. Instead of having nowhere safe to play on site, just running off site and spamming, now we can play on site. One of the big goals for attackers is taking B halls on B, so you can actually entrench yourself in the post plant. Phoenix can be a great duelist to bring along to help with that. Using his wall to get across B can be very handy, plus having it as an extra smoke if you want to use your controller smokes on backside of A. And same for B link, making sure that you're covering all entrances that defenders have to flood onto site. And I think Jet is going to thrive on Pearl in this new setup. There's a few more nooks and crannies to play around on B, where she can play in aggressive angles using her tailwind to get away. And less util is going to mean more contacting naturally, so you can use tailwind to get away with some extra info gathering. For initiators, we've got some big changes. Right clicks are back, baby. 2.25 seconds on an undodgeable flash is crazy, so I'm bringing KO all the way up to A tier, because this is also one of the best maps for getting info from his dagger. You can use it A main or B main and pretty much scan the whole thing, and because the rotates so long for attackers on Pearl, it can give you a lot of head start on rotates. Fade and Sova are both dropping down to A tier. I expect we'll see a fair amount of Veto over the next couple of weeks, and his ability to destroy their recon util specifically on Pearl is insane. So I think we'll be leaning into a more flash heavy meta on Pearl, at least for the first couple of weeks. Let's move over to controllers now, and this is the original map where Harbor became meta a couple of years ago. Back when Sky had a rechargeable flash on like a 30-second cooldown, and now all initiator util has gone to 60 seconds. This game has changed. But the reasons why Harbor is good still apply to the map, especially with the changes to Pearl's B site. Particularly in a ranked environment, just being able to smoke off every entrance into site, and both A and B have 3, can make a big difference. But on defense, he's just too unreliable, too finicky to use. That's why you need to play him as a second controller. Astra was, and always will be the top dog on Pearl. No other agent can create the pressure that she can. And if you're trying to defend against a good Astra, you never know what the attackers are doing. She doesn't even need her teammates to know how to default to create a bunch of pressure. You don't know if they're going to be the whole pack there, a lurker, or if it's just fake pressure. And you always have to worry about those late wraps through mid, where she can use gravity well to stall the defuse and get herself into a good position. And especially with the B long post plant situation heavily nerfed, any util that agents can provide to deny the diffuser is going to be much more impactful and much more critical when you can't just rely on guns. Now let's have a look at Sentinels, where I'm slotting Veto into A tier on Pearl. He has a great all-round toolkit for Pearl, TPing across main op lines or taking aggro main fights, long or mid. That also acts as a stalling piece of util. And he might just be the best equipped agent in the game for dealing with attackers trying to pivot back and forth through A and B link from mid. You can use crosscut to reactively get into position, so the attackers can't out-rotate you no matter what they try to do. And Interceptor will cause nightmares for teams attacking on Pearl. Imagine getting all the way down B long just to realize you can't exec site for another 9 seconds. But I still think the best case scenario is to have like a true heavy anchor plus flank watch. So that's why Vito's A tier as a Sentinel, but I've got him in S tier as a flex, because he can help support your anchor while still roaming around the map and doing his thing. And there's really only 2 agents who play that role exactly how you want on Pearl. The first is Vice, who also provides an extremely annoying piece of util to deal with on B long, which is her shear. Having to scale all the way down B long just to trigger it is so crazily frustrating. And the other agent is KJ. Now, it's been a rough patch for KJ. This is close to the worst map pool that she's ever had, but luckily on Pearl is somewhere that she shines. She's the only agent in the game that can contain both mid lanes at once purely with util. And don't even try and tell me that Cypher can, because you can jump this trip in B link. Plus, KJ's mollies are huge for stalling on Pearl. And using that information, I hope you unlock the key to attacking on Pearl. Understanding the key problems on Pearl and how to exploit the options that defenders have is the key to winning. That's why you can see the comps I've recommended are all fairly fast-paced, 2 double duelist comps, and always including a strong anchor. For low elo, here's our recommended agents, but I really want to specifically highlight Phoenix. He has a particularly high solo carry potential on Pearl because you can use his wall to help your team get onto site in a way that only a couple of other agents can also do. Moving over to CORRODE now, where there could be a pretty big shakeup in the meta. There's been 3 standout duelists on CORRODE: Neon, Yoru, and Waylay. Yoru's nerfs are going to send him all the way down to B tier. A lot of his skirmishing power has been decimated. Waylay has become the 3rd most picked duelist in everything gold and above on CORRODE now. People are really enjoying playing Waylay on CORRODE, and she's great on the map. NRG proved it using her to win Valorant champions, but she does still require that good support from your team. And after knocking Raze down last patch, I'm moving her back up to S tier. This is a patch where Raze can shine. With Initiators being nerfed, her util volume and ability to be self-sufficient is going to be huge on CORRODE now. Boombot helps you scale up into a link on attack, and on defense you can use it to help re-clear mains. Plus paint shells clears so many good pockets of space, or you can use it to destroy util. For Initiators, I don't see Fade being dethroned as the prime pick on CORRODE, but I do expect some strong competition. I'm moving Skye up into S tier on CORRODE. She's always been a great solo initiator. She's great for scaling mid, and those flashes are really valuable in the open spaces. And as I mentioned, Fade will be sitting in S tier for now as well. Having both Prowlers and Cs, even though Haunt goes on a longer cooldown, is still a lot of util for clearing close corners, and that is something that you absolutely do need on CORRODE. Plus, with my expectance of Raze becoming more prominent, Raze and Fade are a natural duo pairing. Moving on to controllers now, where Astra takes another hit, moving down into B tier. She is just already on the edge for this map, and having her stun nerfed really hurts, so I hope she sees some buffs soon. Brimstone remains a steady option in A tier. He has the unique strength of being able to smoke all entrances on B site, and mid is valuable enough to not even care about wasting a smoke there with your limited smokes, and his smokes get inherently more valuable as Initiator util goes down. I very nearly brought Omen down into A tier to join Brimstone, but I think the changes to his paranoia will actually suit his playstyle on this map, and there's just lots of creative plays that you can make as Omen, so his carry potential is quite high. Let's move over to Sentinels. I'm bringing Sage down into A tier. Sage saw some success on CORRODE with the buff to her wall cast range, but the nerf to her wall health I think will definitely knock her back a peg here on CORRODE. And I've listed Vito as B tier as a solo senti, but A tier as a secondary senti. He works really well when he's got freedom to do some crazy kind of setups, but if he's forced to stick as an anchor, you won't get the most out of him. He does pair really well with Chamber, who I already had in S tier, but gets even stronger this patch with less util going around. Having to worry about both of these guys taking aggressive angles and vertical angles makes it really hard to deal with, and in the last week since Vito's release, they've seen a good amount of success on the map already. With an Odin nerf potentially coming in the near future, Fade and Sova might have their days counted, but until then, Recon spam is still really strong on this map. But because they are weaker, Viper's strength continues to improve, and she's going to be so good on this map. Just wait for someone to pick Clove either as a fill or whatever it is, then bring Viper along to absolutely dominate. She's performing so well on this map. NRG proved with their comp that you don't need a Sentinel on this map, and they won champions, and they're 8-0 on CORRODE, so they probably know a thing or two about it. For low elo, just focus on characters that have long duration abilities. Sage and Vice are great for stalling, Brimstone as well. And Neon and Phoenix have the simplest tools for dealing with the A-yard crossfire. Now moving over to Haven and looking at the Duelists. Yoru's ult was a big part of his success on Haven, and now with that gutted, he'll be sliding down to B tier, because it's going to be a lot harder to find success with him. Changes to Neon's sprint will help with her super fast rotations. You've got good options in A tier, but in S tier remains Jet and Neon. Even though Neon is affected by the game-wide concuss changes, the changes to her sprint actually help her fast rotate even better, which is really important on Haven. And Phoenix is going to be a huge beneficiary of all of the other agents around him getting nerfed, because he goes through unaffected. He's sitting in S tier in the flex slot as your second duelist, and he has a lot of flexible use cases for his molly and his wall. On attack, it's super easy to farm the C orb, and on defense, it's super easy to farm the A orb, so you can snowball by using your ultimate. Let's move over to the Initiators now. Teo comes up into B tier on Haven Haven, where by virtue of others being nerfed, he goes through effectively untouched, which means you can play a tempo advantage versus other initiators. With such variety of agent comps on Haven, I'm hesitant to make too many changes to the initiator tier list until we can get an update to see how things play out, because it really does depend on how the other classes play out. For the recon initiators, we're sliding Fade down to A tier, but her counterpart Sova is going to stay in S tier because of how well his util works on the map. But we're bumping up Skye into S tier, who can play with the tempo advantage against the new 60-second cooldown timer of Sova, Fade, Breach, KO, and abusing tempo can go a long way on 3-site maps. Breach as a second initiator will be very good on Haven in the new meta. Even though his stun duration is nerfed, the nerf across the board to initiator rechargeables means any space that you can secure a main, which Breach is really good at, will be easier to hold for longer periods of time, so he gets more net value. And the buff to his flash is going to be really nice for entering into sight. Now let's have a look at the controllers, where I'll be dropping Astra down into B tier. The nerf to her stun leaves little room to continue playing Astra on Haven, especially in a ranked environment. Moving up to S tier now, where I'm going to be leaving Omen there for the meantime. The paranoia length shortening could be a major hit to Omen if it's unable to hit logs or backside A consistently, but the buff in projectile speed is a nice compensation. And Shrouded Set for so many areas on this map is just really, really good, so it's hard to go past. Unless that responsibility falls to another agent which has a very similar ability in another class. And I'm jumping Viper up into S tier as a second controller. She's been very good on this map historically, and she's seen a bunch of play at champions, which means you'll likely see more players picking her up. And the nerf to all initiator util timings means Viper's wall creates even more pressure with less opportunity to reclear, and she was already performing really strongly on the map. As for Sentinels, Deadlock is sliding even further down into C tier with these nerfs. On a map where she already struggled, the nerfs will make it incredibly hard for her to get anything done on Haven, especially as a solo senti. Vito makes a splash and slots into the A tier on Haven. His ability to play fast flood by setting up his crosscuts on site and rotating quickly between them makes him an excellent agent to add into any team as a senti or in that flex slot, especially in rank where teams will often just hit fast and hard. You can make sure that you're always there to help defend, which is incredibly useful when you have 3 sites to defend as a team. He can also abuse verticality like another very strong gun-focused Sentinel. So let's move up to S tier and talk about Chamber. In a world where util is less abundant, Chamber thrives in punishing teams trying to contact long lanes or who run out of util to clear out those op lines. Whether you take long sight lines with the op or play in cheeky vertical positions on site, you will feast if teams don't have the util to clear you. And we're keeping Cypher in S tier as well. The changes to Cypher shouldn't affect his ability to perform on Haven, where he plays much more in line with how Riot want him to play, which is as an agent that excels in creating an information network across the map rather than being a super deadly anchor on site with kill trips. This could be the biggest shakeup that Haven's meta has had in a long time. It kind of goes through cycles, but with nerfs to Initiator util plus the introduction of Vito, there could be some really out there comps that start forming, and I'm excited to see that. Like this 9 Lives comp, and we've got Waylay ISO performing well as a duo on Haven as well. Reyna often sees higher success on Bind compared to other maps, but with her Leah and her ult getting nerfed, she's moving down to B tier. I'm bringing Yoru down, even though this is his best map as a second duelist, I'm bringing him down to A tier. The nerfs are just that big. Raze will definitely be keeping the crown of best duelist on Bind. Raze loves playing with Skye, so with the nerfs to initiators not named Skye, she's going to be in a great spot as Skye's popularity picks back up again. Moving on to initiators, and I'll cut right to the chase. There used to be what I used to like to call the holy trinity of initiators on Bind: Skye, Gecko, and Fade. Fade is no longer part of that trinity. Now we have a holy duality. Fade's going down to A tier. Gecko and Skye pull out the edge by not having to worry about those 40 to 60 second cooldown nerfs. For controllers, I'm moving Astra down to join Omen in B tier. Both of these agents and Clove are fine on Bind, but the gap widens to Brimstone with this patch. With longer cooldowns on util, that means it's harder to re-hit, and Brim is fantastic at stopping pushes with his smoke and with his molly. Now if teams want to wait and re-hit with their util, they have to wait 60 seconds. And following the trend, if you thought Viper was strong on this map before, 4. Holy moly, Viper as a second controller here on Bind is probably one of the strongest things you can do in the game. This is probably the easiest map in the game to learn how to play second controller Viper, which is where it all began. We're dropping 2 Sentinels down to A tier on Bind. The first one is Sage. The reduction to her wall health has a pretty big impact in the way that you want to play Sage in a ranked environment, especially towards that A site to try and get that fast A plant down. That wall is going to crumble very quickly and you're not going to be able to use it to protect your planner. And because you don't take any space, you're just trapped in, you're not setting yourself up for a good post-plant environment. The second Sentinel to drop down to A tier is Cypher. With Riot leaning into his info network playstyle and with the Yoru nerfs, that's going to make Raze more popular again. Your setups are just going to get destroyed. And I can't see Cypher continuing to perform at an S tier level with that being the case. In saying that, I doubt his pick rate is going to go down that much, so be prepared to bring agents that can easily counter him. And I'm debuting Vito in Bind on S tier. The way that this guy can use the teleports is Yoru Waylay-esque. There are some insane defensive setups where you can use the teleporters to be on both sides of the map at once. It takes a little bit of secret tech to be able to get these setups done in time in the pre-round, so stay on the lookout for our upcoming Vito guide. And maybe hit subscribe so you don't miss it. And Deadlock is going to be remaining in S tier on Bind, even though there are some nerfs to her stuns and her wall. They don't stop you from playing the way that you want to play as Deadlock, and the play patterns that she has on Bind with her sensors are super strong and you can't get them from any other agent. With the nerfs across the board to so many agents, I think we'll definitely end up in a Raze, Skye, Viper, Brimstone meta, at least in pro play, but also in higher elo where Clove is still really popular if Brimstone isn't, and then you can pick that second Viper instead of a Sentinel. So you end up with Raze plus whatever Duelist, Skye, Brimstone, and Viper. But that flex slot is very open, and with Vito's clear strengths on the map, potentially a new kind of comp forms around him, or he just slots into that meta comp already. Okay, over to Split now, which I think is the most aptly named map in the game, because the player base opinion of this map is split right down the middle. I know people who love Split. I know people who hate Split. I don't know anyone who's like indifferent to Split. Anyways, let's talk about Duelists. You don't want to get stuck without a dash, which is why Phoenix is in C tier. He struggles on Split, and Reyna and ISO are also only in B tier. Reyna can be okay as a flex, but with the nerfs, be wary. I'll probably knock her down from A tier on the flex roll after this patch. The A tier is crowded with Duelists, and I'm probably being a little bit favorable to Yoru. He could probably end up in B tier. But as you'll notice in the other tier lists, he's been knocked down a bunch. I think on Split is one of the best places that he can still be played really, really well. Closing gaps and making use of vertical play is what makes Duelist really good on Split, and double Duelist is really, really good. But I'm talking double dive, and you want one of those Duelists to be Raze. Raze can be self-sufficient, act like a pseudo initiator to help your solo initiator, and then just send it into heaven or backside with your other Duelist. She also functions perfectly fine as a solo Duelist, especially if you have a flash to support her, but it's because she's so good as a double or solo Duelist that she sits alone in S tier. And if you have a flash initiator, Jet and Waylay are the perfect dive buddies in that flex slot. Speaking of flash initiators, KO's the one that really struggles here on Split. On A site, things are fine, but on B site, it's really awkward for him to get anything done. And Teo is in C tier with him as a solo initiator because he lacks any kind of pop utility to get you out of sight. I fully expect Split to be a flash heavy meta. It's going to be much harder to see success with Sova and as well as Fade. Both of them have slid down a tier. Breach holds firm in A tier. Despite the longer cooldown, that stun is still incredible for locking out attackers in certain parts of space and for setting up key entry fights on attack. He also gets the flash buff, and you'll have to be more careful with your ult, but it's still very possible to util dump and clear all of sight, especially on B. We're going to see a bit of a Skye renaissance this patch. The map pool is very good for her, and she's the biggest benefactor of everyone else's rechargeable utils getting nerfed because she doesn't have any. Teams that aren't running Skye will be at a pace deficit. Skye plus double Duelist is just so hard to keep up with. So Initiator players, start practicing on that Skye. Alright, let's talk about controllers, and yes, it is technically possible to get away with Viper as a solo controller on Split. In the lower elos, it'll be fine if you like playing her. As long as you have lineups for your Poison Orb, you will be able to smoke both sides. On defense, it's very limiting, but you can use your wall for A and your orb for B. Here's a nice little one-way that you can throw. We'll come back to Viper as a secondary controller in a sec. For the rest of your controllers, it's generally pretty balanced between those that have recyclable util. I give the edge to Omen because he can play around with the verticality on Split, which is so important, which means you can play that aggressive double duelist kind of style even without double duelist. Now we're kind of going to bridge the gap before we go to Sentinels and talk about second controller Viper, but in the 5th slot. So something that's really strong on Split is not running a Sentinel at all, which means you get all the benefits of Viper's pressure across the map, all of the value out of her kit on defense, including that orb for mid. Going without a trip on Split is actually totally fine. And you'll see that reflected in the Sentinel tier list as well. So let's talk about that. We're going to jump straight up to S tier because it is chock-a-block full. And remember, these agents are also competing against Viper for their spot. So quickfire S tier Sentinels. Cypher is the only one that can do similar pressure to Viper by using his cages on A ramps. Plus on defense, he can use his cam to watch both A site and ramps at the same time. And on B, you've essentially got infinite setup options. You got one-ways, kill trips, site trips, whatever you want. Using your Sage Wall in mid on defense is a pain in the ass for the attackers to deal with. Doesn't matter that it's easier to break now, they still have to commit resources to doing so. So if you're versing a team that isn't breaking it, you're getting full value out of it for cheaper. Deadlock kind of functions in between Cypher and Sage. Your stuns can wreak havoc as teams try to exec, but you can use your wall to barricade mid, and your Gravnet is good for either. And lastly, I'm sure you want to know about Vito. I think Vito is going to be insane on Split. Not only can he make use of verticality, he can make use of fast rotates. You can be really flexible with your chokehold usage, whether you want to use it for flank or in post plant, and you can get that interceptor into some gnarly positions, which means it's going to be hard for the attackers to hear it and predict it. And you can use it to try and shut down a whole exec, but you can also use it to just help defend backside and really make that a fortress. It's such an interesting map that so many Sentinels are so strong on Split, but there's the reasons why you don't need to play them. And if you want to abuse verticality, like we showed you, make sure you're picking the agents that do so. You don't have to go for a double duelist burst. You can play a more standard or slower controlling lurking style. Neon is great in low elo because there's a lot of early contesting that you can do and you can beat timings with her sprint. Plus, your team won't properly support you if you're flying through the air into heaven, so it might be better to stay grounded, but Neon still lets you move fast through the map. Moving over to Sunset now, we might have a bit of the duelist paradise forming for everyone except for Yoru. He's moving all the way down to C tier, yikes. But it's tough competition at the top of the tier list. Neon, Waylay, Phoenix, and Raze have all got in S tier, and all of these duelists share one thing in common: being able to fight and clear pockets of space. That's going to be even more critical for your duelist to be able to do with lacking Initiator util. As we move over to Initiators, Sova is going to fall all the way down to B tier, as I predict he's just going to get completely outpaced by the faster duelist and Initiator meta. I have Breach sticking in A tier, but you do have to make sure you are capitalizing on taking control of space with that stun. If you're not, then it's gonna feel really bad not having it back for 60 seconds. Nothing really changing for controllers on Sunset in this patch. The changes for controllers in this patch don't overall affect what they're trying to do on the map. Clove is still gonna be the top dog with their ability to contest mid very aggressively without fear. You can also use Metal to contest a main, which goes really, really well. And using your smokes to cover the spike in post plant will win you more rounds than you can count. For Sentinels, I know there's a smattering of you that like playing Deadlock, especially on Sunset, but with these nerfs, I can't justify putting her any higher than C tier right now. Your wall's going to get blown up so quickly, and you'll notice the difference in stun duration. I'm sliding Vito into B tier on Sunset to begin with. I do think he's got some potential on the map, but it's going to take a lot of workshopping to figure out, and also require a high degree of skill to play well. Sage will be fine on Sunset, even though her wall is getting nerfed. It is getting a little bit cheaper as well. It's generally just very strong for controlling space, and she's got her slows to fight a main proactively as well. Sunset's a little bit hard to get a read on comp-wise. I think we'll end up going more towards double duelist than away from it and towards double senti. Double duelist is obviously going to be more popular in ranked, but is it going to be better or worse? For your low elo picks, again, we're focusing on those long stall and sightline cuts. Your comp should absolutely have a Phoenix in every low elo game. You can't go wrong with him, I promise. And I want to hear your hot takes. Argue with me in the comments. Did I get your favorite agent in the wrong tier? Are there any sleeper picks that you expect to go crazy this patch? And let us know, would you like to see a Vito guide? That's all from us for this video. This patch has just been absolutely insane to think about. From the meeting that I had with Riot, it has been hinted that there are more changes on the way as well. So I'm excited to see where the direction of the game goes. It's going to feel new. It's going to feel fresh. I hope you guys enjoy, and we'll see you next time.